princess determined to survive an arranged marriage to a heartless fey prince is saved by a twist of fate that could destroy their world in this standalone fantasy romance.
Hi, friends. You're listening to Beyond the Pages with Sarah and Savannah.
Hi, friends. Thank you for supporting our passion project and listening to our first episode. We're excited to be talking about Amid Clouds and Bones today. Our goal was to be talking about the Black Jewel trilogy, but that world is just such a huge undertaking. It's taking longer than expected, but it is still in the works and will be available to listen to very soon in the coming months. So I guess we'll kind of start off with what did you really think of this book?
I thought it was okay. It was not my favorite book that I've read recently. It was okay. What about you?
I agree. We chose this book so fast and just kind of picked it out of nowhere because, like I said, we were planning on recording a different episode, but unfortunately that's just not the way it turned out. But considering it had a lot of good reviews on TikTok, I agree. It didn't really meet my expectations.
Yeah, what we were looking for was a book that we could read quickly and that was a standalone novel. Something that we wouldn't have to dive into a whole great big world like we were going to have to do with the Black Jewel trilogy. And this fit the bill. It was not a very long book, so we could get it done in the week that we had between when we decided we weren't going to be recording Black Jewel this weekend and when we're recording.
Yeah. So starting off with the book, we have a character and her name is Mildred, and it turns out that she's half human, half fae. And in this world, there's 3 sections to this world. There's the seelie, the unseelie, and the humans. And she doesn't really fit in anywheres. And so we're going through this book of her journey of trying to become this person, but then she's basically whisked away to another kingdom where, again, she doesn't fit in. She doesn't fit in at home. She doesn't fit in here. So
yeah, she's pretty much bullied by the humans and by the fae because she is half and half and nobody really wants her around because she is part of both worlds but part of neither at the same time.
She's quite cunning though, don't you think?
Oh yeah, she knows how to hold her own, and not in a physical way. With the last book we did, Fourth Wing, Violet was able to hold her own in the end in physical ways. Mildred is a much smarter person than a physical being. She knows how to poison somebody just to get back at him for him poisoning her.
Yeah. I didn't find that she was a whiny character either, which is nice. That kind of brought the book up, in my opinion. Just not having a whiny female character just is great.
Yeah, exactly. She's never she complains about her lot in life, but she's like, it's what I'm stuck with and I gotta move on.
I found it kind of difficult though. At the beginning of the book, she's super young, and trying to go from a super young, picturing her to be a child, to an adult.
Yeah, in 3 chapters she goes from 11 to 21, and it's okay, how old is this person right now?
Yeah, and just kind of trying to create what she looks like in your mind. Mm-hmm. And the same thing is with one of the main male characters, and his name is Attican, and he's the prince of the Seelie kingdom.
Yeah, the person she is betrothed to, whether she likes it or he likes it or not, they are stuck together.
Yeah, a good word that they use throughout the whole book is that they loathe each other.
They loathe each other. He loathes her. He repeatedly says that.
Yeah, exactly. And then about, 2/3 of the book through?
Yeah, about 2/3 of the way through, we're introduced to the other main male character whose name is Vane, and he is, at the point that we meet him, he's the king of the unseelie court. He was the prince, but his father died in the war that's going on. When we met Vane and now had both of these male characters that Mildred could end up with, who did you think she was going to end up with?
I don't know. To be honest, whenever I was thinking about this book, and you'll probably have a different opinion, but this reminded me of... I'm laughing because it's just so funny. Tamlin and Rhysand. Tamlin is Vane, and Rhysand is Anakin. Because Anakin is like this brutal force. He like wants to save his country, I guess, or
his kingdom.
And then there's Vane, and when you meet Vane, he's got these friends, and he's happy-go-lucky, which I guess is a switch in ACOTAR, but then they switch again.
Yeah. When we are first introduced to Vane, he's described as this big, massive guy, like hairy. And at first I was like, oh my god, this is Hagrid from Harry Potter. I was like, and for a good 5 chapters, I could not get that image out of my head. And it was really disturbing that I had that image in my head.
Doesn't he have red hair?
Yeah. It was like, okay, what? No, I need to get this. He is not the love interest in Harry Potter. He is not.
At the beginning of the book, I hoped that she would fall in love with Anakin, and even after meeting Vane, I did not like Vane. Something about him gave me the creepy crawlies.
Yeah.
So I was like, does she have to fall in love with him? And then when it switched and she had to go back with Anakin, I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that.
So can we go back to before she even meets Vane, kind of talking about Anakin? The idea that they are forced together at this point, Mildred's like 21 and Anakin's like 30 or so. There is an age gap, but it's not creepy age gap.
It's 6 years in the difference.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's not a creepy age gap at that point. But you're kind of meant to think that she is supposed to fall in love with him, or that he's going to fall in love with her, because in all other fantasy books, the dark, broody guy that is the main male character ends up with the princess. And they love each other, and it's happily ever after. But he hates her. Or at least that's what you're supposed to think for most of the book. And I feel like for the relationship between Mildred and Anakin, it's more lust than love. Like, there are a lot of spicy scenes in this book, a lot of graphic spicy scenes in this book, and it's, I want your body, not necessarily, I love you. It's not I love you until the last chapter of the book.
Yeah. Going back to you saying that he doesn't love her, so we think he's trying to hate her as much as he possibly can. My brain is just, it keeps going back to the book ACOTAR, because remember when Rhysand was under the mountain and he had to hate Feyre, and it was like, really, he was just trying to save his kingdom, and that is the same as Anakin.
Yeah, Rhysand knew that they were fated to be mates, and Anakin knows that Mildred is fated to be his mate. Yeah. Like, before she arrives at Cloud Castle, when she poisons him, he's like, oh, this girl's the girl I'm gonna fall in love with and live with for the rest of my life.
Yeah. To be honest, leading up until the very end of the book, when he's explaining the reason he was so evil towards her, it makes sense. And you kind of, you feel bad again.
Yeah, he tried so hard to hate her, but he couldn't hate her because he loved her. Yeah. And he wanted everybody to think he hated her to protect her and to protect his people.
Do you remember, again, in ACOTAR, whenever Feyre goes back to Tamlin after being with Rhysand, and they go to get married, and Rhysand comes and saves her?
Yeah.
Again, yes. It's the same situation. She's off into the unseelie kingdom, and they break the ward a tiny bit, and he comes and saves her again.
Yeah, and it's like, by that point, she knows that Vayne is responsible for killing her parents, yeah. Which we haven't discussed, or her dad and stepmom, which we haven't discussed at this point. But he made it look like it was Anakin who had killed them, because Anakin is this heartless monster, and that's what he portrays to the whole world. So he made the attack look like Anakin had killed her parents so that she would fall in love with him. But she finds out that he was the one responsible, he being Vayne, was responsible for their death. And she's like, oh no, I don't like this guy anymore. There's no way this is gonna happen. And it's at that point, when she has decided, I can't be around this guy, that Anakin shows back up. I was about to say Rhysand shows back up and saves her, which is the exact same as with Feyre and Tamlin and Rhysand. As soon as she realizes, this is not where I want to be, Rhysand's right there, saving her from Tamlin.
You mentioned, not, I'm ready to say Feyre too. it's not Feyre, it's Mildred.
I've also wanted to call her Violet a few times.
But you mentioned Mildred's parents, and there is a bit of a side story within this story about all of the parents. So Mildred's parents, Anakin's parents, and Vayne's parents. So Vayne's mother loved Anakin's father and left, and that started the war.
Yes.
But then Anakin killed Vayne's dad, so Vayne killed Mildred's parents.
Well, I don't think it wasn't that Vayne's mom left that his father started the war. It was because he believed that Anakin's father had killed the mother, which was not true. We learned that at the end. She's not dead. She is gone, but she's not dead.
Yeah. It was kind of a bit of more of a complex story that didn't get a whole lot of explaining. There was a little bit that kind of left you wondering and just knowing what happened without actually diving into it.
Yeah, so what you end up finding out about the parents is not Violet. I actually said it this time. Mildred's mother came from the unseelie kingdom, which everyone believed she was from the seelie kingdom. So that's why she was supposed to be marrying the seelie prince. What we also find out is that Anakin's mother is Vayne's mother. They're half brothers, despite the fact that, not despite the fact, but that's not what is believed by everybody. No one knows that during the story, except for a select few, being Anakin and his cousin Folly, Mildred, and I guess his stepmother?
Yeah, Cordenia?
Cordenia, I think is her name, yeah. Who essentially raised him. Mm-hmm. She is his father's mistress. Yeah. Consort.
Consort, yeah. There was a line at the end there where she was talking to Mildred and she goes, just because he wasn't in my room doesn't make me less of a mother to him.
Yeah, you can't get rid of me. As much as you want to try, you're not getting rid of me.
Yeah. That kind of opens up a little bit more to what I think is this book could have been a lot more.
Yeah, it definitely could have. It was about 400 pages long, but it certainly could have been a trilogy of books. Um, the first part is Violet growing up, interacting with Attican when they're young and as they get older, and then she arrives at Cloud Castle as an adult, preparing to marry Attican. And then there's a section that is in the Bonelands, I think is what it is, with Vane, and that could have been its own book. And then there's another section, she's back in Cloud Castle, and they're back fighting each other very brutally, which could have been a third book.
You say brutally, I thought it was very underwhelming. I was ready for a lot more, and the war, in quotes here, was basically at the last 20 pages of the book.
Yes.
And it was like, and it was over.
Yeah. By brutally, I mean there was some gory deaths that of unknown people. They were burnt alive and torn to shreds is what I mean.
Yeah. There is a section of this book that we haven't talked about, and we're not going to talk about it because I feel like if you read this book, it'll kind of blow your mind a little bit, because I was just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that one.
Yeah.
So that was a good twist in the book, if you catch my drift here.
I think I know what part you're talking about. It is in the third section of the book.
And I feel like it really just brought the book to life a little bit.
Yeah.
It gave it something else besides this, like, do I love you? Do I not?
I hate you. I love you. Yeah. What were some of your thoughts about the book, other than it was very fast-paced?
Here's the thing. I'm going to give it like a 4 to 4.5 chili peppers, and I'll tell you why. It could have been done a little bit more tastefully. I found it a little bit too raunchy, I guess is a good word. Like, it was just a little bit of like, I don't feel like I should be reading this. I feel like I'm in the room, and it was just a little ooh.
Yeah, it was. There were some scenes that were very uncomfortable to read, and there were some scenes where it was barely consensual. Like,
Yeah.
it was technically consensual, but
It was on a thin line.
it was, yeah. You could argue that in court and get a conviction. It was way spicier than I expected it to be. I knew nothing about this book. I hadn't even seen the TikToks about it, but it was way spicier than I expected.
No, I agree. Would I read this book again? No. Would I recommend it to somebody?
Maybe.
Maybe. Like, it was a good book. I feel like it had more potential.
I think if it had been spread out into 3 books, expanded on some of the interactions, some of the side stories, it could have been an amazing series.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, it's like a 2 out of 5.
I agree.
Maybe a 3 out of 5.
If you're trying to just read a book for fun, sure. But it's not a book that I would be like, this was amazing, like, you have to read this. But yeah. One of the other things that we never did talk about in this book is the relationship between her and her sister.
Yeah.
Now, that seemed like a pretty good relationship, but it was kind of casted aside.
It was very ignored in the story. Like, it's one of the side stories that could have been built on if this were a trilogy. So Mildred has this sister, Bernadette, who she is one of the only people that does not bully Mildred. Mm-hmm. She genuinely loves her sister and genuinely wants her to be happy and safe, yeah. I feel. But she doesn't really get the chance to do anything because Mildred's kind of protecting her as well. Protecting her from the truth, at least.
Yeah. I just feel like because that relationship was so built on at the very beginning and then it was just cut off, that they really missed a good opportunity there to have a better side story. I think that side story was a little bit better than the parents, even though the parents, I guess, makes sense towards some of the things that happened with the war at the end. But I feel like the story between the humans and the seelie kingdoms could have been a lot better used in the book.
Yeah. Um, I think they did, while they did essentially cut off the story, the building of the story between Bernadette and Mildred. They did bring it back in the last chapter or so. Um, After all the fighting's done, Mildred goes to see her sister and her sister's new baby, and she hangs out there for a couple weeks and is like, "Chase me."
Yeah, basically.
But it's still her playing games with Attican, which she's been doing the whole story. Like they play kind of twisted mental games with each other the whole book.
Which was kind of the most exciting part of the book, to be honest. Yeah.
From the moment that at the beginning Attican throws a snake into a carriage that would have killed her if she were not half fae. And then she poisons him, and then they have this ongoing need to win against each other. And it goes through the entire story. And yes, it is one of the most exciting bits of the story.
Any other thoughts on this book?
No, I don't think so. This is going to be a much, much shorter episode than the last time.
Yeah.
I think it's about half the time the last one was.
It's just kind of a bit of a filler because of our issue with the other book. It's just the fact that it's such a giant story.
And a difficult read.
And it is a very difficult read, but I feel like the listeners will enjoy the book once they hear what we have to say.
Yeah, this book also is like 200 pages shorter than Fourth Wing, so there is that. There isn't as much to talk about. There isn't theories to discuss, because this is a standalone book.
Yeah.
So we really want to thank you guys for listening, and we hope that the audio is better this time. We have tried a couple different things. It is our hope that we continue to make these better for you guys. And remember to tell a friend, like this video, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Instagram, because a book goes beyond its pages.
And remember, bookmarks are for quitters. Bye!
Bye!